And switch up to capture age like usual. So anyone who might be tuned in for the first time, this is a by-map AI tournament. Basically, each AI in the tournament, 20 total, he plays one game on Arabia and another game on Arena. And it's a Swiss-style tournament, so there's no elimination. Just whichever AI has the most wins at the end of the tournament is declared the winner of the tournament. Odette and the DEI are some of the AIs that are near the top. Odette's actually the seeded one AI in the tournament, I think. And Odette is actually an AI based on the real player. But it's an AI that was scripted by Esty. And often goes for range units and feudal age and has some pretty good micro. And then the DEI is a long-term community project that made it into the DE version as an official AI. And that was scripted first by Promi, and then offwo took over from him a few years ago. And in terms of AI tournaments, the DEI is usually pretty strong. And it can play a lot of different settings. So taking a look at the map here, we've got a chicken start with some hares. And so we might see a little bit more of a defensive game this time around. Odette's got some forward gold and berry bushes. Got a nice large forest in the back though. So we'll see if Odette can take advantage of that. And let me just change the names of the players here so we can know for sure which one is the DEAI. Yeah, the DEI has forward gold and forward chickens, but mill in the back and a few small forests they can gather from. I think overall Odette probably has slightly better forests. The DEI could run out and might have to find some more forests to gather from. And still enough to decide, probably won't matter too much. So Odette is ahead in resources collected. Looks like the DEI had a little bit of an idle eco. It could have been from garrisoning the TC to hunt the boar. And looks like both scouts are actually kind of sitting idle here, not finding much to do. I think Odette's scout is trying to avoid the TC. And I'm not sure what's happening with the DEAI scout. But we got a lumber camp on the one of the forward forests here for the DEAI, and Odette's going in the back, which is nice. But we got this one villager that's gathering on the opposite side of the forest, so that's pretty unfortunate. And neither AI has gone for the hares yet. Alright, so DEA is adding a barracks. So we might see a faster start from the DEI. And looks like Odette decided to get Loom. So if Odette can be a bit more aggressive and to punish the DEI before it gets Loom, that could be something to watch for. But otherwise, the DEI might be slightly ahead on the economy just because of the delayed bloom. Alright, so it looks like we got a drush coming from the DEAI. Militia total being queued up here. Alright, so Odette's scout here is still kind of wandering around. I'm curious to see what this scout has found so far. So it found the barracks and the mill, and I think the TC, but hasn't found this lumber camp yet. But it might just in here in a second. Alright. Haha. Maybe if Odette's scout was actually scouting around and doing something, would have been better. So let's see. We got a scout war here. So sometimes in AI wars, the scouts, when they're put on the automatic scouting mode, they won't actually fight back. So in a lot of human matches, you'll see AIs just kind of one unit chasing the scout down, and the scout just kind of keep on going on its merry way scouting, and you won't see them fighting back like this. But it looks like Odette kind of seems to be distracted, giving different commands to the scout. So it should be losing the scout. There we go. But at the very least, Odette has found all of the units it needs, and now DE's Midrash is coming in. Odette does have Loom. And have any of the other villagers... One other villager has been injured, but it might have been a boar. But Odette did already lose one villager to the militia. But we got a defensive tower being placed on this forest. Won't technically defend the forage bushes, but it will definitely make the militia's life harder. And one of the militia has been killed. And one is pretty wounded. And the TC got a few hits on them. Thanks to the balance update that made the TCs hit better. Alright, so we got some range units coming from Odette, who just reached feudal age. And we got the same coming from DE. And the DE is Lithuanians, so maybe the DEI will go for skirmishers, but I think the scouts is a more common opening for Lithuanians, if I'm not mistaken. So we got Odette going directly into skirmishers, while DE's going for archers. And to switch to DE's point of view, I'm curious if it's found any... So we got what the militia found during the Dresh. I think they found this archer range in the mill and the tower and the TC. So if it was scripted well enough, it could predict that Odette will be going for ranged units, so the DEI is adding in some skirmishers. I don't know if that's a reaction to the archer range or if that's just scripted by default. And DE did bring back these militia instead of trying to continue the Dresh further. So that's probably smart. Keep them alive so they can maybe do something. But I'm not sure if DE will ever upgrade them to man-at-arms, at least not anytime soon. And we got an exploring scout here from Odette. And killed off. We got an attack coming here from Odette. Let's see, upgrades. No upgrades from either player yet for military. But Odette deciding to retreat for now. So I thought we were going to see some aggression, but it looks like both AIs are being passive here. I've got a lumbercap on this back side of this forest. And that could be a good decision just to keep them all safe, but might be nice to eventually get a lumber camp on this forest, especially since it's protected by the watchtower. If the E were to attack here, that would cut off all of Odette's wood. Adding a mill or mining camp, and then we also have a mill for the chickens. And DE never went for the chickens here, and it's also not going for the attack. We've got 22 military for DE. Yeah, we got the militia here, and then 19 for Odette. Yeah, both are neck and neck in villagers, but DE has gathered more resources. I expect with Vikings that might go the other way if they decide to go both about the equal amounts of villagers. Just because of the free wheelbarrow. And I'm not sure if the Lithuanians' food bonus is counted in resources collected. Probably not. Alright, looks like we might finally get this battle that we were waiting for. So, both are pretty neck and neck in terms of HP. I was about to select those militia, but they just died off. And these villagers are all idled, and the DEI only has this backup lumber camp here. And DE is not really fighting back, but now they seem to be shooting here. Odette has all skirmishers, while the DEI's army is mixed. And so I'm guessing that this is just scripted by default to go for both range units. One lonely archer was killed off here by the DE. And this spearman's not going to do much. It looks like the starting scout has died. A few more range units coming in. We got a defensive tower on this forest. That seems like a mistake to me. It was probably meaning to put on the other forests. But who knows, this could provide a little bit of help. But it would be nice if it was much further in towards the town. TC helping out a little bit here. But it seems like the Odette is a little bit ahead in this battle. So Odette is now ahead of resources collected, but I think that's probably due to the idle eco here. And if this continues for too long, I think the idle eco is going to start adding up. That spearman dies off. TC helping out a little bit. And Odette continuing the aggression and also going up to Castle Age. The DEI is still about 300 feet away from Castle Age. So obviously both AIs starting to whittle down each other's army. So I think this attack will be eventually eliminated, but Odette should be able to use the Castle Age to her advantage and get ahead tech-wise. Meanwhile, I think, well, yep, DE is starting to go up to Castle Age now, but that's about a 2-minute advantage that Odette will have, so we'll see if Odette can take advantage of it. Hey Kibo, nice to see you here. We got a new lumber camp all the way over here for the DEAI, and DE starting to add some stone. All right, elite skirmishers going to come in here any second. And also Odette is far ahead in military. I'm guessing they're all mostly at home. So we got a knight here and some archers. And of course the skirmishers here, which are retreating, maybe to regroup. We got Bodkin and the first archer armor in for Odette, while the DEI has all of the upgrades it can get for its soldiers, besides infantry upgrades. So DE's adding a second stable here, and adding in some knights will be key here, I think. DE hasn't been, or the Odette hasn't been training a lot of spearmen to be able to counter knights that DE might start training, but it might not have to. The Odette has enough army that it can kill off some small numbers of knights pretty quickly, especially with the knights that Odette has. Just like that. And looking to see, okay, I think we've got enough wood for a TCB placed, so it's got a good defensive location. And unfortunately the DE's knights are going to attack the Odette's knights rather than the skirmishers. That's something about the automatic town defense system, is that it doesn't always do a good job of sending units to the right targets. And sometimes they'll actually walk past units that are attacking them. I think especially if the... I was about to say especially if the patrol attack is turned off, but even if it is turned on, if they're not actually marching to defend it against a building that's in the town, then I don't think they'll actually attack, move, or patrol to the units that they're trying to target. They'll actually just basically do a right click. And won't always change their targets to attack the correct unit. So, Odette is definitely taking this battle, I think, so it's just a matter of time of Odette being able to finish off the DEAI. Do have a siege workshop that could help against the skirmishers, and is a good move, I think. But it'll take some really good mangonel shots to really get these armies killed off and be able to come back into the game. And in addition to that, this gold is cut off, and the DEAI would need to add a mining camp here to get the gold for the mangonel. Or, yeah, it doesn't have a market either, so it couldn't trade for the gold to train one. Okay, so this TC actually never went up. I guess it was attacked before it could go up all the way. The mangonel wandered into the TC range, so this might go down unless villager repairs it quickly enough in time. Looks like the villager's just okay. It was almost able to keep it going with the repair speed, but the TC killed it off. So this TC will go up, and this TC in the middle of nowhere will probably go up also. And I think a lot of these villagers would go to help this one once the TC is built. I bet the total TC builders is set to 4. Oh, and then, yep, TC was cancelled by these archers attacking it. And these skirmishers wandered into the TC range, but that might not be such a big issue. The TC has 7 attack, and these skirmishers have 5 pierce armor. So this TC is not going to be able to kill off a lot of skirmishers. And these knights are relatively safe as well, 4 pierce armor. And DEI trying to build a monastery. Maybe to counter these knights, but I don't know. I feel like the DEI is trying to do too much right now. Try to add a 3rd TC. It also has a siege workshop, but can't make a mangonel. Trying to add a monastery when it doesn't have the gold to train bunks. At this point, I think I'm waiting for the TC to be threatened, and I'll call the game. Might also call the game once Imperial Age is reached by Odette. I think that's what I'll do. Got a Scorpion added by Odette. And 3rd TC is placed again, as well as this mining camp. Ah, looks like the DEI is resigning now. Went below 20 pop. Must be the resign condition. Alright, so let's take a look at the sets here. Odette was aggressive from the start. And we saw a pretty close range unit battle here in this part of the game. But I think just the economy was idled so much by Odette being the aggressor, and DE wasn't able to fight it back quickly enough or protect his economy well enough to keep itself in the game. And just to take a look at resources collected, I think, so the attacks, I think, started around this time, maybe around 19-20 minutes. So yeah, you can see that the resources collected started slowing down around that point as well, and Odette got the victory. And for the sake of completeness, we'll take a look at these numbers here briefly. And then we'll go on to our next set, or the next match. Alright, and then the DEI is once again playing random, while Odette will be playing either Incas or Franks. So go to our civ picker. We've got Incas or Franks. Alright, got Franks for Odette. And the DEI is once again playing random. Alright, and here we go for game 2. And we got Byzantines for the DEAI. So, let's see. Mark Odette is the winner for the first game. And so I think most of SC's AIs favor aggression over booming. And the DEAI, like a lot of AIs created by Promi, do kind of favor the boom. So the DEI could play pretty well here. The Byzantines don't have the best boom in terms of economy, but should do pretty well once they get to Imperial Age. And might have the units to counter the Franks cavalry. So we do have a D arena this time, so it could favor a slightly more aggressive game. The DEI has pretty much all of its resources are forward, which is unfortunate. Place a lumber camp here off to the side. Meanwhile, Odette has a forward gold, but other resources are pretty well defended. Odette's got lumber camp placed here up to the right, and Odette is also pushing in some deer. We're not seeing that yet from the DEAI, but I think we'll probably see that soon. And unfortunately, deer ran away, so it looks like the villagers haven't gathered it right here. It actually looks like it might abandon that deer for a moment. But some deer is better than no deer. Second lumber camp for the DEAI, and this one's not placed adjacent, unfortunately. Sometimes that happens even if the allow adjacent drop sites is turned on. And I think that just has to do with the the side of the lumber camp that the forest is on. I think probably what it does is that since the center of the lumber camp is this rightmost tile here, I think probably what it does is like to make it work for the left side, it probably measures 2 tiles away from this tile. So any force here, 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 or here would be a valid place to build the lumber camp. But also 2 tiles away from this tile means that this tile is only 1 tile away, so it's considered to be too close. So then it goes to like, okay, it has to be this force is where you want it. Like this placement for 2 tiles away from here is what allows the placement to happen. So yeah, just since the measurement is from the lumber camp is probably not centered on the lumber camp, I think that's probably what is throwing off the allow adjacent drop sites, that strategic number. So it'll be adjacent to left forest, but not right forest. Hope that makes sense. I have no confirmation. That's just kind of a guess from what I've observed in the game. All right, so we got a mining camp from the DEAI. And so we might see like a 27-28 pop from the DEAI. Not positive. Odette is still only on wood and food. Got plenty of farms. And the DEAI did get loom, maybe for boar hunting. I'm not exactly sure. But DEAI is going up to feudal first at 27 pop. And I wonder if we'll see Odette do the same thing soon. Alright, so Odette's getting loom. 29 pop. I think we'll see feudal age start after that. Alright, now we got the mining camp with 5 villagers. I wonder if these 5 will be able to go to this mining camp. Alright, so just 4 of them went, and this villager got sent to farming, and it looks like this one might be sent to gold. I'm not entirely sure. It's saying villager. I guess, okay, a capture age seems to show all villagers as just villager, not what they're tasked to. So I don't know if that villager was a gold miner at any point or if it was always a lumberjack. Might have been sent to try to assist this mining camp. Alright, so we got some more villagers that are assigned to gold, I think. Market and blacksmith for DE. And still waiting to see what Odette will go for, but it looks like DEI is going for a boom, as you'd expect. Alright, so it looks like Odette has found DEI and is actually attacking the gate. We'll see if this guy gets sent to do something else here. Meanwhile, let's see if the DEA has found Odette or not. So, it's found the left side of the wall, just not the right side yet. Alright, got Castle Age for Odette, and the DE is about 30 seconds earlier. Both getting their eco upgrades, and Odette seems to be going for stables. And it looks like DE's found the other side of Odette's base. And surprise, surprise, I wonder if we'll see knights from Odette. They're not usually as good on Arena, but we'll see what Odette can do and make use of them. This is an AI match, so knights could be good enough to break through walls and then force the DEI to defend. Alright, so the DEI has just barely enough wood for a TC, so you might see that here in a couple seconds getting placed. And indeed we do, in this nice little nook here in the forest. Sometimes the default methods of placing drop sites actually works really well. I haven't found a really good way to replicate some of its placements. But of course, sometimes the default placement is not very good. Okay, so we have what I was talking about in the previous match, where sometimes a scout might ignore what an enemy scout is doing. Oh. Let's use the sneeze. I don't know if that made it through on stream. Alright, so we got a barracks in the back, maybe to try and hide it from Odette, I'm not sure. We've got a TC right up against the walls, not ideal, but sometimes the default placement can find a good spot, and sometimes it doesn't. So we got husbandry being added for the knights. Got +1 armor. And we got a TC on the stone. So the DEI seems to be going for the boom. We'll see if Odette can disturb that. So we've got one knight. Okay, so all of Odette's knights seem to be gathering right here for some reason. I'm curious if so the gates are locked. So hopefully that's Odette's not trying to send them to attack by having a gate locked bug. Hopefully we'll have code here that can unlock the gates so Odette can attack here. If not, this will be really unfortunate. Alright, so Odette seems to be canceling the training. Maybe it's decided that it needs to focus on the boom instead, or it just has enough knights. 12 seems like a decent number that, like maximum number that Odette would go for. Okay, so we got 13. One more being trained. Yeah, so it's like cavalry training was not actually cancelled. Alright, so we got another TC being placed, and unfortunately, that seems to ignore mining camps that are already there. Maybe the drop site separation distance is actually too low. I'm not sure. Alright, so we got a second barracks here for the DEAI. We've got a bunch of pikemen trained in defense, I think. And gates are still locked for Odette. Okay, so I think there's just a temporary... If the TC doesn't have the food to train villagers, then I don't know if it resets the night training to get the food back so it can train a villager. But it seems like these are a temporary message, so it can prioritize villager training. Yeah, but I have to expect that these gates being locked must be some sort of logic that wasn't prepared for. Hopefully, it's just a case of like not thinking through some conditions to lock and unlock the gates. But this is probably hurting Odette's chances quite a bit of being able to compete in this game because the DEI is definitely getting ahead on the boom. And so DE seems to be sticking with pikemen for the moment. Gates are still locked. Let's just take a look at Odette's exploration here. So Odette can see pretty much the entire walls of the EEI's base. I don't know if it's actually, it probably hasn't seen all of these buildings, but it's sort of a quirk of capture age that you might not be able to. It kind of shows the area that it's explored, but the objects that we can actually see in the fog of war might not be what the AI can actually see in game. So at this point we might see the first action in this game once Imperial Age is reached. The AI is 2 minutes away from Imperial, and Odette should be close to researching it now. And there we go. Defensive castle being placed by DE. Cataphracts might not be so important this game, but can be helpful in certain situations. I suppose if Odette tried to go for swordsman to counter these pikes, but I would probably counter these pikes with hand cannoneers, thrown axemen, or even skirmishers. But I think at this point in the game, skirmishers are probably too late to go for, just because the Franks don't have good archer upgrades. Alright, so DE's reached Imperial Age. Got a second castle. Researching Halberdier. And we got some monks, but otherwise DE is still going for the Spearman line only. And Odette is nearing Imperial Age. Still gate locked. So unfortunately, I think we might have to see, unless Odette has some rule to like unlock the gates in Imperial Age, we might have to see the DAI actually break Odette out before these units start attacking. We got Cavalier for Odette, and then Elite Cataphract for DE being researched. Handcart seems to be a little bit late for Odette, but better now than never. Alright, Odette's got one unit outside the walls now due to a conversion. Aha! And Odette let herself out. It's time for the battle to start. So it is always possible that that was intentional by SD, instead of trying to script the units to be passive. Just like, okay, let's just lock the gates, and the AI might look bugged, but maybe it's all intentional. But we might see a case where all the halberdiers end up doing their job and killing off all the cavaliers. But maybe not. Cavaliers are strong. Alright, so we'll see if Odette's Cavaliers can cause some damage. Over time, I think the halberdiers will be cost effective, and so they should be able to fend off the Cavaliers, especially once they go under the castles and such. Alright, Odette is retreating her units back, and the DI is marching forward. Both AIs roughly equal on population. Odette had just more villages at this point. So we got some castles on the side here. It'd be nice if they're toward the center. The DI is taking some stone here in the center. And so we're seeing some throwing axemen, which should help against the halberdiers, but they're not upgraded yet. Thankfully, they're a bit more effective since the recent patches to improve the throwing axemen, but at this point, they're not actually stronger than they used to be. They're just quicker to train, and it's once the bearded axe and the elite upgrade come in when they start to shine. So we see Paladin from Odette, which, playing defensive like this, maybe those resources would be better spent on other things. Paladin is one of the most expensive upgrades in the game. But I guess the Frank's strength is really unlocked once you get to Paladin. There's not a lot of other power units that the Franks have. So we might see these castles go down. Yeah, throwing axemen coming to the defense here, but not killing these rams off quickly enough. They do have the one more melee armor than they used to. We also have some hand cannoneers. Hand cannoneers plus the cataphracts should be able to take care of these throwing axemen pretty easily. But we do have paladins in from Odette. And the DAI doesn't have as many halberdiers as they used to. Still training them though, they're just, a lot of them weren't on the field yet. So I think we'll see these castles go down. I'm curious to see if Odette will have a response going into other units. Looks like we have a hand cannoneer that might have just been a conversion. Instead we're seeing some skirmishers, but I don't think these are upgraded. So we got the +2 damage. But lead upgrade is missing and don't have any extra armor at this point. And it's looking like the DI might take this one. Odette always has some good chat. We're seeing this castle go down. I think once we see this TC go down, I'll call the game. But it's pretty much over right now. And Odette calls it. So let's get. I don't know if the locked gates was intentional from SC or not, but the DEI's quicker boom ended up being the deciding factor in this game, I think. And so you can see the military numbers here, and just the counter units are doing their job, fending off the units that Odette had. Odette seemed to have some good strength at first, but halberdiers are just too cost effective against the night line. Alright, we can quickly look at the other stats here in game.